Everyone keeps saying it. Just find your passion. But what if chasing that idea is the very thing keeping you stuck? Here's the truth. Most people don't find their passion. They build it, step by step, through action, not inspiration. And waiting around to feel ready? That's the fastest way to nowhere. In today's episode of Grow Leap Academy, we're going to dismantle the feel-good myth that's holding you back and show you what to do instead. If you've ever felt lost, behind, or like everyone else has it all figured out, this one's for you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Grow Leap Academy. Today we're doing a deep dive into something you hear constantly. You know the phrases, find your passion, follow your heart, do what you love.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Graduation cards, Instagram quotes.
Exactly. And it sounds great, doesn't it? This romantic idea that there's one perfect thing out there for you.
It really does.
But what if that advice, as good as it sounds, is actually, holding you back? That's the main idea we're digging into today, based on some really interesting sources we've looked at. They argue that thinking of passion as this thing you find, it actually keeps most people stuck.
Right. Because it sets up this idea that there's one magical thing, your passion, waiting to be discovered. And if you haven't found it, well, then you start thinking something's wrong with you.
Like you're behind or maybe just broken.
Exactly. And then what happens? You wait. You overthink everything. You scroll, you read, you hope some quiz is going to just hand you the answer.
Yeah, hoping for that lightning bolt.
But these sources, they completely flip that idea.
Oh, yeah.
They say passion isn't something you find. It's something you actively build. You build it by, doing things, learning skills, trying stuff out, messing up sometimes even.
So waiting for it, that's just a recipe for staying put.
Pretty much, according to this material. Paralysis.
Okay, so let's really get into this. Our mission today is to unpack this passion myth, this really persuasive idea, and explore the alternative approach these sources offer. It's a method that's all about taking action to create direction, especially when you feel completely lost or uncertain.
Action first.
So if you've ever felt stuck or like you're somehow failing because you haven't had that big aha passion moment, well, this deep dive is definitely for you. Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've established it's everywhere, this find your passion advice. And look, wanting to enjoy what you do, that makes total sense. Who wouldn't want that?
Of course. Nobody wants to dread their work or their life. But here's the tricky part the sources highlight. This advice, maybe unintentionally, has stalled so many people. It shifts passion from being something that might happen because you're engaged
into something you need right at the start, a prerequisite.
Precisely. So if you don't wake up on day one with this burning fire inside you, this crystal clear purpose,
you feel like you're doing it wrong, or you're just not cut out for, whatever it is.
Right. You internalize it as a personal failing. And this pressure, it leads straight to just stopping or never starting. People get trapped in their own heads for sometimes years, thinking they need the whole map figured out before they take one tiny step.
Treating it like a puzzle to solve in your mind.
Yeah, instead of a path you walk.
And the sources are careful to say, look, passion itself, nothing wrong with it. Feeling passionate is great.
Absolutely.
It's the pressure, the expectation that you must find this one specific thing first. That's the problem.
That's the core issue. Because when finding passion becomes the only filter, you start asking these impossible questions right at the beginning. Like, do I absolutely 100% love this right now? Is this the one single thing for the rest of my life? Will this give me meaning forever, starting tomorrow?
Yeah, those are huge questions. And the answer, especially when something's new or hard, it's almost never a resounding yes right away, is it?
Almost never. So what happens? You hit that first bump, that first moment of doubt or difficulty, and because it doesn't feel like pure, passionate bliss.
So you bail. You think, this must not be it.
Exactly. You reject an opportunity that might have grown into something amazing. You quit when it gets tough. Or maybe worst of all, you just don't start anything significant because you're still waiting for the one.
You're stuck chasing a ghost, basically, not because you're lazy, but because the target is wrong.
And the sources paint a much more realistic picture.
Yeah.
They look at how people actually build fulfilling lives. And guess what? Most people don't have one single giant passion lighting up their whole world.
What do they have instead?
They have curiosity, Little sparks of interest, they find moments where they get really absorbed in something, flow. They go through periods of challenge and growth. And sometimes meaning just sort of emerges slowly over time.
Okay, and here's the really crucial part, the counterintuitive bit. Those feelings, the engagement, the purpose, what we eventually might call passion, they usually only show up if you're already doing something.
If you're in motion.
The sources seem pretty emphatic about this. Passion doesn't just knock on the door while you're sitting on the couch waiting for it.
Not usually, no. It tends to find people who are already moving, already engaged.
So the big mental shift we need based on this research.
It's letting go of needing that certainty, that burning passion. Before you act, you need to flip it. Understand that action. That's the road to passion, not the other way around.
Action creates the feeling, not the other way around.
Okay.
Let's dig into that passion as a result. The sources really go after that fantasy, the Hollywood moment where you stumble upon your thing, the clouds part, music swells.
Yeah, the instant click. Everything falls into place forever.
They basically say, look, that's a nice story, maybe happens to one person in a million. It's a highlight reel, not reality.
Exactly. Because in the real world, passion isn't like finding a buried treasure chest, already full. It's more like growing a garden.
Okay, I like that. Explain.
It develops, piece by piece. Often starts really small, maybe even from something kind of ordinary or mundane. And the key ingredient they point to, the soil for that garden, it's competence.
Competence. Okay, getting good at something.
Right. Think about the feedback loop this creates. It's really powerful.
Walk me through it.
Okay, so you start doing something.
Yeah.
You practice, you learn, you get better at it.
Yeah.
Even just a little bit better. That's confidence building.
Okay.
As you get more competent, what happens? You start to feel more confident doing it. It feels less awkward, less frustrating.
Makes sense. Confidence grows.
And when you feel more confident, you naturally tend to enjoy it more. It feels good, be good at something, even moderately good.
True. Enjoyment increases.
And then, when you enjoy something, what are you more likely to do?
Keep doing it. Practice more. Spend more time on it.
Exactly. Which leads to...
You're getting even better. More competence.
There's your loop. Competence fuels confidence, which fuels enjoyment, which fuels more action, which builds more competence. And it all starts with the doing.
Not with having the passion figured out beforehand.
Precisely. The sources look at people across all sorts of fields. Musicians, athletes, coders, entrepreneurs, chefs.
Yeah.
People who seem incredibly passionate.
Did they all start out that way?
Often, no. The stories are usually more like they took a required class, or they needed a job, or a friend dragged them along, or they were just vaguely curious about something.
Just a small spark.
Yeah, small spark, or even an accident. But then what did they do? They showed up. They put in the work. They faced the frustration of being a beginner.
They stuck with it long enough to get better.
They developed competence. And somewhere along that path of getting better, the sources argue, the feeling we call passion started to grow. It followed the progress.
So it wasn't the engine that got them started.
It was more like the high-octane fuel they discovered later, once the engine was already running.
That really reframes it. Passion is often the reward for sticking with something through the messy beginning parts.
It's the result of staying long enough to get good.
And that explains why just chasing the feeling of passion first is so often frustrating, right?
Totally. Because getting good at anything worthwhile, it feels awkward at first. There's a learning curve. Mastery is way down the road.
And if you quit as soon as it feels hard or not instantly amazing,
you never build the competence. You never get to the part where it starts feeling really good and engaging, where that sustainable passion can actually take root.
So the alternative view here is actually pretty liberating.
Very much so.
It's saying, if you're willing to push through that initial I'm bad at this phase,
which everyone goes through,
then something that starts as just, a thing I do, or a job, or a hobby, it can become deeply meaningful. It can become your passion over time.
Passion isn't uncovered by thinking. It's earned by doing, by committing.
Okay, so this leads to a much better question to ask ourselves, doesn't it? Instead of, what's my passion?
The sources suggest asking something like, what am I willing to show up for consistently?
Even when it's not easy.
Especially when it's not easy or exciting or inspiring yet. What are you willing to put the reps in for?
That feels way more doable, less pressure.
Much more grounded in reality.
And it connects right into the next big point from these sources, the whole thinking versus doing thing. They describe this pattern that's so common. You feel unsure, maybe lost. So your instinct is to think your way out of it.
Right. You retreat into your head, you analyze, you research, you make pros and cons lists, watch videos, read articles, hoping clarity will just magically appear from all that thinking.
Waiting for the perfect insight.
And here's the tough love from the sources. Thinking, when it's disconnected from action, usually just creates more confusion. You end up spinning your wheels, going in circles.
Ouch. But probably true for a lot of us.
They're really clear on this. Only action creates clarity.
Why is that? Why can't we just figure it out first?
Because you don't actually know anything until you try it. You don't need to know if something is the one before you dip your toe in. You just need to try it long enough to get real feedback.
So until you do it, it's all just theory.
It's all just guessing. Educated guessing, maybe, but still guessing. You need contact with reality to learn anything meaningful about whether it fits you.
I like that phrase, contact with reality. The sources have a great analogy for this too, right?
Yeah, the idea that you can't think your way into purpose. You have to live your way into it.
Live your way into it, meaning
Clarity comes from the experience itself, from the feedback you get, the things you learn by doing, the way it actually feels, not from sitting still and pondering.
like staring at a foggy map.
Exactly. That's another good one they use. You're at a crossroads. The map shows different roads, but they're all covered in fog just beyond the intersection.
You can study the map all day.
Debate which road might be best based on the tiny bit you can see.
But the only way to know what's actually down that road
Is to take a few steps. Start walking. Then the fog lifts a little. You see the actual terrain, feel the incline, and then you have real information to decide. Keep going or try a different path.
It's iterative learning through movement.
That's it. And the sources point out, this is how creative people often work. They don't wait for some grand, perfect vision.
They tinker. They experiment.
Yes, they test things out, they make stuff, they put ideas into motion. Not because they're certain it's the answer, but because they're curious. And they know that movement itself generates the next idea, the next direction.
So instead of a 5-year plan,
Maybe think about a 5-day experiment, something small, low stakes, just to get moving and get some data.
what kinds of small actions are we talking about?
Oh, really manageable stuff. Volunteer somewhere for an afternoon. Ask someone doing interesting work if you can buy them coffee for 15 minutes just to hear about their day.
Start a tiny project on the side that takes maybe 5 hours total. Take one module of an online course, not the whole thing.
Build one small thing, right? One short piece. The key, the sources stress, is that the action should give you feedback. Real world interaction, not just consuming more information passively.
So doing, not just reading about doing.
Right. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. A real attempt, a real step.
Because clarity isn't waiting at the end of a long, deep thought process.
It's built through motion. One imperfect, real step after another.
So the message is pretty clear then. Stop waiting. You don't need to feel 100% ready or certain. You probably won't.
And you don't need to be. What you need is momentum. And momentum starts the second you shift from only thinking.
To actually doing something, anything.
Which leads us nicely into the practical how-to. Because these sources don't just critique the myth, they offer a concrete framework for building that direction when you feel lost.
Okay, great. A plan.
Yeah, a simple 4-step process designed specifically for creating clarity through action, especially if you don't know your passion.
Let's hear it. Step 1.
Step 1, follow curiosity, not passion. Or maybe follow curiosity, not pressure.
Okay. Less wait.
Exactly. Forget finding the one thing. Just ask yourself, what's even mildly interesting to me right now? Not life-changing, just interesting.
Could be anything.
Anything. A topic you keep Googling, a problem you notice, a skill that seems kind of cool, a group of people whose work you admire. It's just a little spark. They call it the breadcrumb trail.
Follow the breadcrumbs. Okay, simple enough. Step 2.
Step 2, start a low-stakes experiment. This is key. No giant leaps required.
Get small.
Keep it really small and manageable. Can you commit, say, 10 hours over the next couple of weeks to actively explore that little spark of curiosity? Less than an hour a day.
10 hours. Okay. And
No.
what do you do in those 10 hours?
You take action. Watch some specific tutorials and try to replicate them.
Yeah.
Reach out and interview someone in that field for 20 minutes. Try a tiny starter project. Read one relevant book. Maybe take notes on how you could apply something. Build something small. Write something short. The goal is active engagement and getting feedback.
Not just passive learning. Got it. So follow curiosity, do a small experiment. Step 3.
Step 3, reflect with intention. And this happens after the experiment, after the 10 hours or whatever you set. Don't just finish and forget.
You need to process the experience.
Right. Ask yourself specific questions. What parts of that actually felt energizing? When did I feel engaged? What parts felt like a total drag, like pulling teeth? What felt surprisingly natural or easy? What felt forced? And here's a good one. What would I actually do again, even if nobody was paying me or telling me to?
That helps filter out the shoulds.
Exactly. It helps you listen to your actual experience, your gut feeling, not just the idea you had in your head. Your body often knows before your brain does.
Listen to the signals. Okay. And the last step, step 4.
Step 4, double down or pivot. Simple decision based on your reflection.
Okay.
If certain parts of the experiment felt good, energizing, interesting, double down. Expand on those parts. Maybe do a slightly bigger experiment in that specific direction.
Dig deeper where it felt good.
Right. But if the experiment mostly felt draining or just wrong, that's valuable information. That's not failure. That was the point of the small experiment.
It's to learn quickly and cheaply.
Precisely. So you just pivot. You look for a different breadcrumb of curiosities, maybe one that came up during the reflection, and you start the cycle over with a new, small, low-stakes experiment on that topic.
And you just keep doing that, repeating the cycle.
That's the engine, according to the sources. You repeat this cycle. Follow curiosity, small experiment, reflect, double down, or pivot.
And each time
You learn something real. Each cycle adds data. Each pivot refines your direction. That initial fog of uncertainty, it starts to lift bit by bit.
Not because you had a sudden revelation,
but because you built clarity, brick by brick, experiment by experiment, through action and reflection.
That's how it takes shape.
That's how they argue most meaningful careers and creative paths actually unfold. Slowly, incrementally, then maybe looking back, it feels like it happened suddenly. But it's dozens of these small, intentional moves, not one big, risky leap in the dark.
So the message is really consistent. Stop waiting. Start building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we boil down the core truth from all this material, it really is. You don't need to find your passion like it's lost keys. You need to build your direction actively.
And when you look at people who seem genuinely fulfilled, the sources suggest they didn't just sit around waiting for a divine message.
No, they were moving. They stepped forward, often with just curiosity as their guide, took small, imperfect steps. They engaged with the world.
And through that process, they ended up creating a path that felt meaningful, that felt like home.
Right. The passion didn't necessarily lead them there. In many cases, the passion followed them as they built skills and momentum on that path.
So what keeps most people stuck, then, according to these sources?
It's usually that false belief that you need absolute certainty before you start, that you need the whole map perfectly clear before taking step 1.
But clarity isn't found just by thinking harder.
No. Clarity, they argue, lives in your actions. It lives in your calendar, in the habits you build, in the results of those real-world experiments you run.
Okay, so if you've been listening and feeling that sense of being stuck, waiting for a sign,
maybe this is it. The challenge these sources put forward is pretty simple, really.
what is it?
Pick one thing, just one thing you're even slightly curious about. Doesn't matter how small or silly it seems.
Okay, got my one small thing. Now what?
Now, this week, block out 1 hour, just 60 minutes, and use that hour to explore it actively.
Actively meaning?
Not just reading more about it. Do something. Make something tiny. Try a small piece of the skill. Ask someone who does it a specific question. Get your hands dirty, even for just an hour. Turn thinking into doing.
1 hour of real action.
Just 1 hour. And then after that hour, ask yourself that simple question.
Do I want more of this or less?
That's it. No lifetime commitment needed. Just more or less, based on that tiny taste of reality.
Because passion doesn't hit like lightning.
It grows like a plant. That's the final image the sources often use. It starts small, grows slowly, quietly, rooted in that consistent action, that repetition.
And if you just keep moving, keep doing these small experiments, letting go of needing all the answers up front.
Your path will start to reveal itself. Not all at once.
Piece by piece.
Experiment by experiment.
So the final thought to leave everyone with, drawn from these sources, it's quite provocative.
Go on.
You're not lost because you haven't found your passion. You might just be stuck because you're not moving.
So start now. Not because you finally feel certain.
But because you're alive, and movement, action, that's the engine of discovery.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Growleap Academy deep dive. We really hope exploring this passion myth gives you a new perspective, maybe frees you up a bit.
And maybe, just maybe, encourages you to take that one small active step this week.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Grow Leap Academy podcast.